In this video, I'm going to share 5 science-based protocols that you can implement into your daily life to improve your testosterone levels and unlock your full potential. Make sure you stick around until the end because the final tip is going to be on increasing androgen receptor sensitivity and density. And without this component, your increased testosterone levels will mean absolutely nothing. Masculinity is under attack, and one of the key battlegrounds is testosterone, which has been in free fall alongside sperm counts for the last 30 years. We're fatter than ever. Our environments are overrun with chemicals.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
We're lazier and more depressed than our grandfathers, and in all honesty, men are turning into a bunch of pathetic losers. Number 1, fix your diet. One of the major factors affecting modern man's testosterone levels is being too fat. Body fat isn't just a store of energy. It also has an impact on your body's hormone levels and systems. Adipose tissue is a key site for the synthesis of estrogen, and elevated levels of estrogen trigger signal pathways in the body that downregulate the production of testosterone, as estrogen is synthesized from testosterone. High levels of testosterone result in high levels of estrogen, and this is why many bodybuilders develop things like gynecomastia and the swelling or tenderness of breast tissue that they get, because they have synthetically elevated levels of testosterone in their body, which converts into estrogen. And this results in feminine secondary sex characteristics. So one of the body's main methods of dealing with elevated estrogen is to reduce testosterone synthesis. Now there is less circulating testosterone that can be converted into estrogen, which means less estrogen. Job done. But for those of us that are not pinning trenbolone acetate, this reduction in testosterone is not beneficial. In addition to this, adipose tissue is also responsible for the production of the enzyme aromatase, which converts testosterone into estrogen, exacerbating the problem. So here we have ample evidence that every pound of extra fat that you carry is turning you into more of a woman.
You're turning into a woman.
No, I'm not. Why would you say that? That's just mean.
Now I've upset you? What did I say?
Not what you said, it's just the way you said it. Oh my God! I'm a woman!
The fat is an estrogen and aromatase factory, both of which are going to lower your body's testosterone. Which means one of the biggest things you can do to improve your hormonal profile is to reduce your body fat percentage, which means cleaning up your diet. Lowering your body fat is a matter of reducing the energy density of the food that you're consuming and increasing the amount of energy your body is utilizing, i.e. calories in, calories out. There is another issue though, which is you shouldn't just be reducing calories, but actually improving the types of food that you're putting into your body. Most of the foods in the standard Western diet are hyper-processed, hyper-palatable garbage loaded with emulsifiers, hydrogenated fats, trans fats, in addition to things like glyphosate and other pesticides that they're sprayed with. Each of these ingredients presents its own problems. Most processed foods utilize large amounts of omega-6 heavy seed oils, which in and of themselves would not be so much of an issue if they were consumed in reasonable amounts. But if the bulk of your diet is made up of this garbage, then the chances are that your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio is out of balance. The human body works best when these fatty acids are consumed in equal amounts or a 1-to-1 ratio. But the standard Western diet has risen to somewhere in the range of 17-to-1 in the last 60 years. Rat studies looking at the effect of omega-6 to omega-3 ratio on sperm motility and deformity found that a 1-to-1.5 ratio of 3-to-6 was the most beneficial for rats, and that ratios of 5-to-1 cause significantly more sperm deformities than the ideal ratio. They also found that ratios above and below this sweet spot negatively impacted the synthesis of sex hormones like gonadotropin-releasing hormone, follicle-stimulating hormone, and testosterone. One of the easiest ways to bring your omega-6 to 3 ratio down is by cutting these seed oil-rich foods from your diet completely. Reducing the amount of food you eat, which is fried in these oils. That means your Mackey's French fries are off limits. And increasing the amount of omega-3 in your diet by eating more cold water fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines. The only micronutrients I think it's worth trying to supplement, if you can, are magnesium and zinc, which both play a key role in testosterone synthesis. But that's it. Don't overcomplicate your diet. You don't need athletic greens. You don't need a juice cleanse. You don't need to go carnivore or keto. Just eat natural whole foods. If it doesn't fly, swim, or grow out of the ground, don't fucking eat it. Ever seen a chocolate bar bush? No, so don't eat it. But cacao comes from a bush. Yeah, but so does cocaine, and I wouldn't advise you consume that either. Make sure you're getting decent amounts of fat in your diet. Cholesterol is a key component of foods like eggs and fatty meat, and it is the primary precursor molecule to testosterone, i.e. the cholesterol you eat is going to be converted directly into testosterone. And if you don't eat enough dietary cholesterol, your body is going to synthesize it from other parts of your diet in order to create testosterone anyway. But it would obviously be simpler if you just ate enough. Finally, ensure you're eating enough protein. Protein is the key component required for building muscle, which moves us smoothly onto the next point. Number 2, fix your body. You don't just want to reduce body fat, you also need to increase your muscle mass. Muscle mass is an endocrine organ, meaning it helps to produce hormones. Increasing testosterone will increase muscle mass, but similarly, increasing your muscle mass will also increase your testosterone levels. Weightlifting, especially big compound movements, result in the largest short-term increases in testosterone. The more muscle recruited, the better. So lift close to failure. I honestly don't go to failure on any big lifts anymore simply because the risk to reward ratio becomes less and less worth it the older you get. But stopping within a rep or two of failure is safe and effective. If you already have a workout routine or you know how to plan one, you can skip ahead of this little section. But if you struggle to see results in the gym, then this bit is for you. A decent gym routine that promotes increases in both size and strength needs a few things. Firstly, ensure your workout routine has plenty of the big, heavy compound lifts in it. Deadlifts, squats, hack squats, bench press, military press, and pull-ups. All the old school strongman shit. Secondly, you need to make sure you're doing enough volume. The periods where I've had the biggest gains in the gym have always been during or directly after periods of very high volume, consistent work. I actually enjoy hitting the gym 6 days a week, so I usually take a lower volume per day approach, with maybe 4 exercises a day, hitting 2 to 3 sets of 10 reps at a challenging weight. But if you prefer to do all of your exercise in just 3 or 4 sessions, you can always increase the number of exercises and working sets that you do. How you split up your routine isn't hugely important, but some ways I've done it in the past included upper-lower days. That might look like squats, leg extensions, hamstring curls, and calves Monday, Tuesday vertical push and pulls, Wednesday Romanian deadlifts, Bulgarian split squats, calves, Thursday, horizontal push and pulls. Friday, leg press, curls, and extensions. Saturday, a dedicated arm or shoulder workout. If you're not sure where to start in the gym, you can get a copy of my complete beginner testosterone booster book. Below, it includes all the strategies in detail in this video and an in-depth look into the science, as well as 5 different workout routines that you can implement in the gym to start seeing gains straight away. Make sure you're doing plenty of cardio as well, not just weightlifting. Your heart will appreciate it, but you will also ensure your body is able to shuttle nutrients and hormones around more effectively. It will also help you to push yourself harder and longer in the gym, which will have a positive impact on testosterone. And the final way you can boost testosterone whilst improving your physique is to do something competitive. Most sports are essentially a way of mimicking battle. You and a band of brothers going head to head with another tribe. Winning increases testosterone, but the training helps too. If you're not into team sports, do martial arts. I enjoy Thai boxing, and there's nothing better for testosterone levels than training to beat the shit out of someone. Number 3, avoid the booze. Alcohol has both acute and chronic negative impacts on testosterone levels, and it is an insidious problem because of the size and shape of the molecule. The active ingredient in alcoholic drinks is ethanol, which is both small and incredibly mobile. The molecules are able to diffuse into every cell and tissue in the body, and they can pass through the blood-brain barrier and disrupt nerve impulses. But most importantly here, the clinical evidence shows that ethanol has a detrimental impact on the body's endocrine system. The endocrine system being the series of hormones and signaling pathways your body uses for communication. This includes androgens like testosterone, estrogen, DHT, among others. Both acute and chronic exposure to alcohol can cause imbalances in these hormonal systems, including the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, and the hypothalamic pituitary thyroid axis, amongst others. The hypothalamus acts as the control center for the body's endocrine system, which itself is comprised of various glands and hormones. Disruption to this control center, or its communication axes, obviously affects the hormone levels and functioning. In addition, the research shows that chronic alcohol exposure increases levels of prolactin in men. The male hormonal system is a complex interplay of different hormones and chemical reactions. So changes in blood concentration of any hormone can have far-reaching and complex effects. But one of the known effects of increased prolactin in males is that it results in testosterone suppression. In fact, the hormone prolactin is thought to play a key role in a man's refractory period after sex. It's also linked to suppression of testosterone when men live with women and have children. Both of these life events have been shown to increase base levels of prolactin in men and suppress testosterone. This is likely an adaptation to reduce male aggression and therefore reduce the chances of conflict and danger towards the mother and infant. If regular consumption of alcohol increases prolactin, then we would likely see a similar testosterone suppressant effect in chronic drinkers. But even without the direct impact on prolactin levels, there is a dearth of evidence showing the negative impacts that alcohol consumption has on the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, i.e. the endocrine system which links the brain and the testes. Both acute and chronic exposure lead to suppressed testosterone, albeit via different pathways. Ethanol increases the activity of the aromatase enzyme, which is responsible for the conversion of androgens such as testosterone into estrogen, which means the more you booze, the more testosterone gets converted into estrogen. Studies have shown that men with alcohol use disorder and cirrhosis have decreased circulating levels of the hormone IGF-1 or insulin growth factor 1, which itself plays a role in the synthesis of testosterone. Reactive oxygen species, which are produced as a byproduct of the body's metabolism of alcohol, are thought to cause cell damage in the testes, disrupting the body's testosterone production. The alcohol metabolite acetaldehyde can also disrupt testosterone production by inhibiting protein kinase C, a key enzyme in testosterone synthesis. Not to mention the other negative effects of alcohol consumption, like weight gain, increased levels of visceral fat around the organs, which again increases estrogen production and downregulates testosterone. Number 4, eliminate environmental toxins as much as you can. Every generation faces some form of well poisoning. For our parents, it was leaded petrol, and for us, it's microplastics and xenoestrogens, found in every soap, cream, and item of clothing we use. Add to that a series of other endocrine disrupting compounds we've managed to add to all of our food and the materials we use, and you start to see why male fertility is falling off a cliff. These types of compounds are so prevalent, it is impossible to live your life in the modern world and simultaneously avoid them. Xenoestrogens come in a myriad of different flavors. BPA found in plastics, phthalates found in cosmetics and soaps, atrazine used as a herbicide. Xenoestrogens cannot be completely avoided, but there are steps that we can take to reduce our exposure to them. The more insidious issue with these chemicals is that they can bioaccumulate, meaning that exposure to them causes a slow buildup in the body. They're also susceptible to bioconversion into other more damaging chemicals. They're able to disrupt the endocrine system because they mimic estrogen, which tricks our body into thinking that estrogen levels are elevated. And as already discussed, when our body sees high levels of estrogen, it downregulates testosterone production to compensate. So what do? First, buy your fruits and veggies from the market and bag them in paper, not plastic. Try to buy food with minimal plastic packaging. Don't drink water from plastic bottles. These things sit in hot storerooms and are transported vast distances, which means plenty of opportunity for BPA to leach into your water. Avoid foods packaged in plastic and never reheat food in plastic. Try and use glass or ceramic containers. And avoid cooking with Teflon pans. Choose stainless steel or ceramic or even carbon steel. Try to wear clothes made out of natural fabrics like cotton, linen, or wool, and avoid polyesters and other synthetic fabrics. Opt for shampoos and soaps with minimal ingredients and avoid those which contain parabens and phthalates. Be conscious of the ingredients in the things that you buy. Stick to whole, unprocessed foods, as this offers less risk than the scientifically engineered frankenfood many of us are currently eating. One thing you can do is smash that like button to help boost this video in the algorithm, and we can get more men on the right path when it comes to optimizing testosterone levels. Tip number 4 is to fix your sleep. Sleep is pivotal for regulating your hormonal system, especially testosterone. And unfortunately, in the modern world, bad sleep is endemic. The vast majority of testosterone produced in the body is produced during the sleep cycle. Studies have shown that even short-term impacts on sleep can negatively impact a man's testosterone levels, And in older men, there is a direct correlation between morning testosterone levels and the number of hours of sleep that they've had. Sleep consists of 3 key components. Number 1, falling asleep. Number 2, staying asleep. And number 3, waking up properly. To improve our ability to fall asleep, there are a series of protocols that we can implement. First of all, being a nighttime ban on blue light. There is a dearth of research which shows exposure to blue light sources in the evening disrupts our ability to fall asleep. Our body evolved to regulate our sleep cycle based on the sun. When the sun is rising and light levels are increasing and the color of light shifts from the red to the blue end of the spectrum, or when it's setting, light intensity is decreasing and shifting into the red area of the spectrum. We have a series of cells in our eyes and skin known as photoreceptors, which pick up on the change in light intensity and set off a cascade of hormonal and neurochemical signals to bring us either out of sleep or put us into it. When the sun was the only major light source, this process was pretty straightforward. But in the modern age, we've created a whole host of new light sources which screw with our receptors and can dysregulate our circadian rhythm or biological clock. So to combat this, one of the big changes that we can make to reduce our exposure to artificial light in the evening. Most sources of artificial light contain the full gamut of the visible spectrum, which mimics sunlight in the daytime. As the sun is setting, the color of light we're exposed to slowly shifts to the red end of the spectrum, due to the light dispersing through the atmosphere at an angle. We can mimic this by using red light sources of an evening and switching our devices to night mode or turning our devices off altogether. The next protocol would be managing our caffeine intake throughout the day. Caffeine is a stimulant molecule which works by binding to our brain's adenosine receptors. Adenosine essentially builds up throughout the day and causes us to feel tired. As it binds to adenosine receptors, our tiredness climbs until it peaks and eventually knocks us out. Caffeine is similar in structure to adenosine, so it can bind to the receptor site without properly activating the signaling pathway, which essentially means adenosine is unable to do its job of signaling to our brain and our body that we're tired. This is part of what makes you feel so awake and alert when you drink coffee. The issue with caffeine is that it has a half-life of around 5 hours, which means 5 hours after consumption, half of the caffeine is still in your system. Depending on how much caffeine you consume and how late into the day you have it, you may still have a full cup of coffee's worth of caffeine in your system by the time you try and go to bed at 10 or 11 p.m. So if you are going to drink caffeine, it's important that you front load it earlier in the day and then abstain for as much of the day as possible to ensure that you have the best chance of completely clearing the chemical from your system. But don't consume it as soon as you wake up. This can also have negative impacts on your adenosine, which will still be clearing about an hour or so after you wake up. So the best time to get your coffee in would be around 90 minutes after waking and then making your final cup of coffee as early as possible. Alcohol is another popular psychoactive chemical you'll want to avoid if you want to improve your sleep quality. Whilst it can help send you off to sleep, alcohol disrupts the body's ability to enter REM or rapid eye movement sleep. We go through several different sleep phases, including REM, non-REM, deep sleep. REM sleep is when you are most likely to dream, and it's thought to be the time when our brain is being repaired and memories are being consolidated. Often you'll find that when you consume alcohol, you may sleep a full 8 hours, but still feel tired the next day. This is due to the fact that alcohol prevents you from entering REM sleep. Our brain is unable to undergo its usual repair process and memory consolidation. So that's what we can avoid to improve sleep, but how about things that we can add into our routine to get a better night's rest? Well, one thing that you can supplement, which will support both increasing testosterone production and sleep quality, is magnesium. Magnesium supplementation, especially when paired with exercise, has been found to positively impact testosterone levels in men, and it's also been linked with improved sleep scores. The actual mechanism of action is not currently known for either of these effects, but you can experiment with supplementation and see whether it works for you. Make sure you consult with your doctor before starting any supplementation program, especially if you have any medical conditions that could be affected. The common recommendation for improving sleep is to supplement with around 350 milligrams of magnesium, but you may need to try different types before you find one that works for you. I've supplemented with magnesium glycinate powder, which allows me to control the dose, but it tastes absolutely revolting, so it isn't for the faint of heart. You can buy whatever form you like as capsules if you want to avoid the gag-inducing taste of it though. The next thing we want to do is ensure that we stay asleep. Our magnesium supplementation should help with this, but other things we can do are install things like blackout blinds or curtains to make sure that our bedrooms remain dark throughout the night. Keeping our room cold at around 16 to 18 degrees Celsius. It's also important to ensure that you're getting enough physical activity throughout the day to make your body tired enough to enter and stay in a deep, restful sleep. A daily workout is the goal, but if you can't swing that, try and make sure that you go for a walk in the afternoon and boost your steps up as close to 10,000 as you can. The days I do the most exercise always result in nights of deep, restful sleep. But if you're going to do high-intensity workouts, try and make sure that you finish a few hours before bed. I find whenever I do Muay Thai training too late, it actually prevents me from getting to sleep when I want to. And finally, waking up is also important. You might find that sometimes you go to sleep and wake up when you're ready without the need of an alarm. You feel super well rested. But on other occasions, you're woken up by your alarm, and it's like you're being ripped out of the afterlife and back into the real world. You spend the rest of the day drowsy and irritable. This may be to do with where you are in your sleep cycle when you wake up. A normal sleep cycle usually lasts around 90 minutes, and during this time, you go through each of the different phases of sleep: REM, non-REM, and deep sleep. And at the end of the cycle, you enter a phase of light sleep, during which time it is easiest to wake up. When you don't wake up, you enter another sleep cycle. So when we don't time our alarms effectively, what's happening is we're forcing our body and brain to wake up when we're partway through a sleep cycle. Maybe we're in REM sleep or deep sleep. And the result of this is feelings of tiredness and grogginess that can be hard to shake throughout the day. The easy fix for this is to make sure that we're timing our sleep alongside our sleep cycle, which means aiming for 8 hours can actually be detrimental despite the fact it's touted as the standard amount of sleep to go for. You'd actually be better to sleep for 7.5 or 9 hours, as these would both sync up with the 90-minute sleep cycle, giving yourself around 15 to 20 minutes beforehand to fall asleep, though this will be less of a necessity if you've been following all the other sleep protocols. You may fall asleep much more quickly than usual. Some additional things you can do to help with sleep is making sure you only sleep in your bedroom. If you're like me, you'll have gone through phases where you've laid in bed watching Netflix for half of the day. The problem with that is that when you're used to watching TV in bed, your brain begins to associate the space with those activities, and it can make it harder to fall asleep when it comes to bedtime. So keep your bedroom as your fortress of solitude and use it only for sleeping and horizontal workouts, obviously. The other thing that will help with falling asleep is to keep a regular schedule, going to bed and waking up at the same time. You train your body and your circadian rhythm to expect the sleep at the same time every day, and this makes the transition from being awake to being asleep much easier. Deviating from the schedule, especially on a regular basis, can have negative impacts on your ability to fall asleep and stay asleep. And number 5, now we finally get to increasing our androgen receptor density and sensitivity. This is arguably the most important tip on this list. We have to increase androgen receptor sensitivity and density in men. Androgen receptors are the place in our cells where our testosterone and other androgens bind in order to do their job. If we have low receptor density, it means there are not enough receptors. So even if we have high testosterone, it doesn't matter because the molecules cannot bind to the sites and create the necessary signals. Androgen receptor sensitivity simply means how well our receptors respond to testosterone when they bind to the sites. So if we have low receptor density and sensitivity, all the testosterone in the world would not be enough to create the biochemical signals we need to get the benefits of the hormone. And if we had incredibly high receptor sensitivity and density, then even clinically low testosterone would be adequate to increase our muscle mass, our motivation, and our drive. So how can we positively impact our androgen receptors? Well, most of the tips on this list so far will help, as things like xenoestrogens have been found to negatively impact androgen receptors. And exercise, as always, has a beneficial impact on these receptors. Another thing we can do is increase our levels of heat shock proteins, as these are attached to the androgen receptors in cells and they stabilize them. And activities that increase levels of heat shock proteins in the body include exercise, which raises the body's temperature, and things like sauna. The relationship between testosterone levels and androgen receptor density is actually a positive one. Normally, if a hormone is elevated, then the receptor will be down-regulated to compensate. But in the case of testosterone, if we elevate our levels of testosterone, our body actually up-regulates androgen receptors. One of the major changes we can make, which will positively impact both our our testosterone levels and androgen receptor sensitivity is to avoid watching porn. Studies on rats have shown that when animals reach sexual satiety, that is, they copulate repeatedly until satiety, there's actually a major downregulation of androgen receptor sensitivity in certain areas of the brain. I've discussed this before in terms of its impact on dopamine, but it is just as important in terms of testosterone and androgen receptors. When we're regularly reaching sexual satiety, our body also releases high levels of the hormone prolactin, which is responsible for the refractory period after sex, but also involved in the downregulation of things like male aggression when men have children. Prolactin and testosterone seem to be inversely correlated. When one is high, the other is suppressed. And studies done on men who abstain from any sexual activity have found that testosterone can peak at around 7 days in and hit up to 140% higher than their original baseline. Whilst the studies showed testosterone return to baseline afterwards, it's possible that continued self-control results in an upregulation of androgen receptor sensitivity, allowing the body to get more bang for its buck even with normal levels of testosterone. Any man who has ever been in a long-term relationship can attest to these effects. When you're single, you're far more hungry and driven. When you have a long-term partner and are reaching sexual satiety often, many of us end up becoming soft. We gain weight, we lose motivation, we become somewhat feminized. Now, I'm not suggesting that you become a hermit or a monk, but be aware that this is a lever that you can pull to alter both your testosterone levels and androgen receptor sensitivity and density. If you got value from this video, share it on your social media, comment below if you used any of these approaches and how they've worked for you. And until next time, stay safe.